In this video, I'm going to be discussing the houses in astrology, houses 1 through 12. Now, the houses represent the various areas of life that exist in your natal birth chart, from your identity to your subconscious. I'm going to be discussing houses 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in this video. So, this is all the houses. I do have timestamps in the description in chapters that show up in the video, hopefully, where you can skip to whatever house that you want to hear in terms of its description. So, let's consider the planets in your natal chart as actors or actresses, because we count Venus, which is a feminine planet. And the costumes that they wear are the different signs that these planets are in. How they really show their stuff is based off of whatever sign that that planet is in. And then where, like, what's the setup? What's the stage? What's the scene? That is determined by the house. So Mercury and Gemini in the fourth house would mean that someone's really bubbly and very communicative and has a lot of ideas and can talk on and on and on when they are at home and when they're connecting with their family. So I thought that I might just give you an example of how that shows up and how that looks. So let's first discuss the first house. And it's really, really fitting because the first house represents beginnings, new beginnings. It's the fresh start house. The first house is known as the house of self or the house of your individuality. It represents who you are basically as an individual apart from everybody else. So the first house, all the 12 houses, by the way, correspond to all 12 zodiac signs. So the first house is Aries, the second house corresponds to Taurus, the third house is Gemini, etc. So this house corresponds to the zodiac sign Aries and its ruler Mars, the planet Mars, the planet of action and assertion and aggression. And Mars is a really fiery energy that represents the energy and drive that you have to get things done and go after what you want. It's also the planet of war and the planet of reactivity, how you react to something that is thrown at you based off of your Mars sign. And so this house is an angular house. And what that means is it corresponds to one of the four angles in your birth chart, which are the ascendant, descendant, the MC, and the IC. So if we consider wherever your ascendant is, that sign is in your first house, and then you start it from there, and then you go all 12 zodiac signs. So, for example, if you're like me, and if you're a Sagittarius rising, then Sagittarius would be your first house. Capricorn is your second house. Aquarius is your third house. And Scorpio would be in your 12th house. And so any planet that is close to the ascendant is likely to be in that first house. Um, and so, when we're looking at the first house, we're talking about a house that falls on the cusp. So it is the cusp of the first house on the ascendant. So it represents the individual odyssey, the individual voyage or journey in this life. as you're growing and evolving into whoever you are destined to become, um, it represents the path that you take to become who you want to be, to stretch into, to step into who you want to be, and what you decide to do in your life, and how you decide to take initiative and take action in your life and assert yourself with whatever you need and want and desire. So it tells who you are, basically, where you can ask the question, who are you? And that is defined if you have a lot of planets in that first house, then those planets really correlate to your individuality. So who are you? Who will you become? Is another question. Who are you destined to become and evolve into in this life? Your potential. That's also something that it relates to self-actualization, self-realization. It also describes your personality. If you have a lot of first house planets, and those planets really play a huge part in um, your personality, that makes you distinct and unique from everyone else. So, your personality, maybe that's shyer, maybe that's quieter, or maybe that's more extroverted and outgoing and playful and full of joy, and whatever it may be. Um, it represents your identity, your character. It tells you a lot about your character. And as I said, it represents new beginnings. It deals with Aries themes like asserting yourself and getting yourself into the war range and making sure that you are known to everyone who is looking at you, and to make sure that you are alert and on your toes about what is going on in life. But it really goes back to this idea of beginning. It starts with the you, first of all. It starts with the self. It starts with the individual. And then you expand from there. So where you begin things, where you begin things in your life, plays a huge part into what the first house is about. It also rules over your physical body, what you look like, your appearance, where you assert yourself in your life, where you daringly and boldly go after your goals, because, we have to sort of tie in the houses to the signs here. And they're not exactly the same, but there are a lot of commonalities. There are a lot of similarities. So Aries is confident. Aries is bold. Aries is a fiery sign. It's a sign that knows what it wants, and it has the empowerment and the strength and willpower to go after it in a really courageous and steadfast way. So it represents you in context to the world around you. It represents your approach to life, how you go about your life, how you sort of steer the ship of your life. Your attitude is also ruling, corresponding to the first house. And it represents first impressions, first date, first relationship, whatever may be a first in your life. It also represents how you want to be seen in the world, how you want other people to see and perceive you. Do you want people to perceive you as someone who's bubbly and, funny and full of joy and all those kind of things, or someone who's very determined and professional and austere, or someone who is really has a lot of high expectations, whatever it may be. So how others see you, it represents your self-confidence, your inner sense of self-confidence, and the belief that the belief in yourself, and within who you are, that defines how you plan out your life when it comes to having self-confidence that you can have what you want and that you can have the life that you desire. Self-expression, it also represents how you express yourself out in the world. The mask that you wear, because I have a video that I will link below, which is the ascendant, and I have a whole nother video about that where I discuss the meaning of the ascendant in astrology. So the ascendant is the mask that you wear, sort of, the first thing that people perceive and what people see of you before they really get to know you. And the mask that you wear based off of your ascendant sign covers up maybe your true, deeper, identity and, the certain dynamics that lie within you. So it represents the mask that you wear. So I discuss more on that in my video on the ascendant. It also corresponds to the circumstances of your birth. So if you have planets in the first house close to the ascendant, you may take on qualities of that planet. For example, if Saturn's there, you might be very responsible and really disciplined and wise beyond your years, old when you're young. You may be very determined and driven towards your goals, and you're committed and you're in it for the long haul. What if Venus is there? You attract in a lot of blessings and love, and you want, to experience pleasure and, relationships and things like that. In terms of body parts, it rules over the head. So it rules over that part of the body because Aries rules over the head. So that is another important detail with the first house. So moving on to the second house. This house, now we're moving into Taurus territory now. So the second house has what's called accidental dignity with Taurus, that particular zodiac sign, and the planet Venus. So this is known as a succeeding house. It falls between the angular and Caden houses, which correspond to the fixed signs. So we have the cardinal houses, which are the angular houses, which are about taking the initiative, having the get up and go, taking the lead of your life. And the fixed signs are about willpower and being stubborn and being strong toward what you desire and actually manifesting that in physical form. And so the second house deals with your possessions, your physical possessions, food, a roof over your head, those kind of things. But it also deals with, and I'm going to get there, but the possessions that you own, the things that you have reflect your values and what is really important to you, and what matters to you, what you value. So that's a really important thing to know. The second house rules over the material realm as well, the things in the material realm. It corresponds to our five senses: taste, touch, smell, see, and hear are those five senses. It deals with essential experience in using your five senses to enjoy whatever life has to offer, like, good wine, beautiful artwork, good food, beautiful music, those kind of things like that. And it also corresponds to the simple pleasures of life. It deals with comfort, because Taurus is a sign that loves its creature comforts. So that's, really, really important detail there. This is known as the financial house. It rules over money. It rules over earned income, investments, debt, budgeting, personal savings. And it also corresponds to your approach to money, how you approach money, and how you your relationship to money, how your views and your beliefs on money. So it deals with paychecks that you earn through your hard work, through you getting the money. Because when we talk about the eighth house, we talk about joint resources and shared, and inheritance and things like that. Where it is money from, a bigger um, group that you gain from that group, gain from that larger organization, but the money that you work hard to own is represented by the second house. So the Taurus Scorpio axis between the second and eighth houses is considered the wealth axis, the money axis. So it deals with paying your bills, money management, so personal freedom in regards to money, how you use that money based off of what you value, and how you spend that money, and what do you spend it on. And also, who do you spend that metaphorical money on? Who do you invest in, as well? So that's super important to remember. The second house is also ruling over your sense of inner self-worth, that you are worthy of enjoying the pleasures of life, that you're worthy of, living, breathing, taking up space, or do you not feel worthy and you're not using the second house to your biggest maximum advantage? So it deals with self-worth, self-esteem, and how you invest in yourself. How do you value yourself, or whether or not you value yourself, like taking care of your physical body, going out and walks, eating the right foods, um, getting enough sleep, working out, doing yoga and meditation, calming down your mind and getting into a grounded space. Those kind of things. It also corresponds to, with Venus, Venusian energy, your sense of style and taste, the things that you like the clothes that you like, the different colors of clothes, or quilting fabrics, or curtains, or objects that you put around the house that are beautiful, or art that you like, or food that you like. Um, Based off of what you value in your personal sense of taste and pleasure. But as much as the second house rules over the external possessions, it also corresponds to the inner feelings and thoughts that you own. That you own inside of you, that you possess inside of you, the emotions that you own within yourself. It also corresponds to how we use the resources available to us. The second house deals with what we value, who we value in our lives, and the reasoning behind why we value those things. So, how we value ourselves, and do we value ourselves or not? It corresponds to self love. The things that we do, which shows us whether or not we love and accept ourselves. It also corresponds to our sense of right and wrong, our ethics. Um, and so when it comes to the second house, it deals with the practicalities of life It deals with our search for security in our life, financial security, maybe physical security, and our emotional security, and stability. Daily routines, things of that nature. It corresponds to standing by on our beliefs and our opinions, and we may be stubborn about our opinions and beliefs, and what we know to be true and what we believe to be true. And we may be very, when it comes to the second house, we may be very traditional, and we may cling to traditions of how things have always been done, and that things work out, and why change what works. And this has been tradition in my family or whatever it may be, that I feel strongly about, and I don't want to let this go, or just devalue it. So we're stubborn about tradition. It rules over, in terms of parts of the body, the neck and shoulders. It rules over things like speaking and singing. And it also corresponds to our talents and gifts and abilities that we possess, inside of us. It deals with the functions of the body, like the mouth and, all those things like that, where we ground into the body, into the physical body, into this vessel that our souls use to navigate this physical reality in its conquest for whatever it seeks to experience. And, that our body is, a vessel and a temple in that regard. Um, so it deals with the different functions of the body. So that is all about the second house. Now let's move on to the third house. So the third house corresponds to the sign of Gemini, which is a very spontaneous, communicative, intellectual, and busy, very variety-loving air sign, and Mercury, the planet of communication and learning and sending messages and those kind of things like that. So when it comes to the third house, we're looking at communication. So either verbal communication or written words rules over reading and writing. The third house also corresponds to primary education, grade school, grades 1 through 12. So it deals with learning, primary education, like learning how to read and write in those basic skills when it comes to learning. It also deals with your relationship with, your siblings. It corresponds to siblings in your life, or people that are always around, or anyone in your immediate environment is what that third house deals with, that you connect with on a day-to-day basis. Maybe you have small talk with these people. Maybe you chat and strike up conversations with these people and talk about what is on your mind and share your ideas and listen to their ideas and have conversations with them. So that's very third house. The third house also rules short distance travel, like errands around your community, or traveling out of town to another town. So short distance travel trips. It corresponds to the people in your community and to the activities of your community. It deals with neighbors, so rules over connection and relationship with your neighbors, co-workers. It also deals with shared thoughts and words or ideas that you voice. Intelligence is another thing that's the third house rule. So smarts, your brain, all those kind of things like that. Um, the third house is also how we process information. So how we process information, how we learn information. Um, it also rules over language, so the different languages. In terms of the parts of the body, it rules over the hands, arms, and lungs, because it corresponds to breathing as well, and activities with your hands. It also rules over gadgets such as the phone and communication devices, all kind of communication devices that we use, anything to make our life more efficient and fast. Um, it also corresponds to, it's a really fast and busy house with a lot of mental activity because it rules over intellectualizing things, your mind. It also corresponds to variety and spontaneity, doing things just for the heck of it because of a whim, in the moment. Um, it corresponds to ideas. It also rules over your learning style, whether you're a visual learner or whatever type of learner that you are. So how you learn. It's the way that you communicate, the style of how you communicate is the third house. Reading, it corresponds to that, conversations with others, the interactions that you have with people in your world, um, and different means of communications, different ways to communicate. It also corresponds to the ways of transportation, like cars, trains, planes, automobiles, all those kind of things, all those, um, you know, those things in our world. It also corresponds to commuting or how you get to work. Um, And so, in terms of the stages of life, once you find your identity, once you get in touch with your possessions, values, and your physical body, now you can start asking questions. Now you can start to explore the world around you, um, and learn how to speak and learning, basic writing and reading skills. So it really relates to the toddler stage of life, where you put your foot in the door, so to speak, when it comes to communication. It rules over socialization, getting curious about the world around you, when it comes to asking questions and seeking answers, gathering up information, researching, data collecting, because Gemini is a sign that deals with collecting a lot of data and information. So this is also what the third house rules over. Um, and so it deals with the relationship with parents, uncles, aunts, and cousins. It also corresponds to acquaintances and close friends, those kind of relationships. Listening is also something that it rules over, actively listening and processing and taking in the information, comprehending um, information, um, and learning that information. So it deals with reasoning as well, because Mercury is the planet that rules over the logical mind and the rational mind. So reasoning makes sense here, being very pragmatic. And in general, it corresponds to all mental activities, or activities that involve your mind. So that is the third house. And now we're going to talk about what the fourth house means. So the fourth house in astrology, this is the house that is associated with home, family. It's associated with emotional boundaries, the boundaries that we put up to protect ourselves in our life. It corresponds to ancestors, our family history, our family lineage, and our roots, our family roots, our emotional roots, and our emotional foundations. So it corresponds to our emotions and instincts, the things that we know, instinctually without having to think of it in our feelings. This is a house that corresponds to our home, both our physical home and the home inside of us, our internal home, where we come home within ourselves. When we drop into a peaceful place within ourselves, a sanctuary that's both safe and secure also corresponds to the fourth house that we make for ourselves and that we find in the physical world, that, that kind of thing. So that also is important here. Real estate is also associated with the fourth house. Traditions, family traditions, those kind of things like that. A place of peace and love that we develop inside ourselves, that we can come back to. And then how we anchor ourselves into our internal peaceful and loving place. Nurturing and caretaking is yet another area of the fourth house, how we want to be nurtured and how we also nurture and take care of others around us. So how we, provide for them or take care of them. The fourth house is also associated with the mother archetype, mother energy, caretaking, nurturing energy. It's associated with sensitivity because this is a sensitive place, a sensitive house. So it deals with emotional sensitivity as well, food and other forms of nourishment that we, put into our bodies is another area of this house. Privacy, where we want to keep things private, where we want to have that sense of safety and security that is sheltered aside from, the physical world. So we want things to be private in this house. That's important. And so the fourth house is an angular house. It rules the IC opposite the MC, which is the midheaven. The fourth house is at the very bottom of the chart wheel. It corresponds to your homeland as well, the land or your country or your state or your town that you live in. It not only rules the family that you grew up in as a child, but the family that you also establish as an adult. And the fourth house also corresponds to the houses that you lived in through your life. So from one house to another, that kind of thing. Family values is associated with the fourth house. Property, the things that you own. Not necessarily for physical comfort, which is more the second house ruling possessions, but it's the property that you own for emotional safety and security. Um, it is for that emotional stability to be intact that you own the property that you own. Family history is also associated with the fourth house. So emotional habit patterns, um, whatever that may mean for you, is also associated with the fourth house. Um, and old age, because it rules over endings. So old age, when you're at that stage of life, um, that could be another area, the fourth house. So all of the different houses correspond to a sign and a planet. So the fourth house corresponds to Cancer and the moon. So that's super important to remember. Okay, so the fifth house, moving on to that house. The fifth house rules over romance, dating, flirting. So part of the fifth house is meeting new people, engaging in those kind of activities. Creativity, anything that you do that involves you being creative, whether it be painting, music, acting, building a table, whatever it may be that you define as personal creativity, where you're really utilizing your right brain, how you want to shine. So shining, um, and wanting the validation and attention from others and the recognition for your talents. Um, so the fifth house corresponds to self-expression, that kind of thing like that. The fifth house also corresponds to children and your relationship with children. Children are really playful and they want to, have fun and do all those kind of things. So it also rules over children. Your idea of fun, it rules over what you do for fun. What are the things that you do that bring you joy and pleasure, whatever it may be? Um, what you do during your free time or break time, just for the sake of having fun and enjoying life, without a structure or um, societal expectations, but the things that you do outside of your work and everything like that. So that is super important to remember about this house. Um, Recreational activities is also something associated with this house. Play, the things that you do for playfulness, like building something or playing sports, or those kind of things like that. Your hobbies are associated with the fifth house. The sign that is associated with the fifth house is Leo, and the planet is the sun that's associated with this house. Um, so self-expression, in all its forms, as I mentioned earlier, the things that you do, that you put your heart into, because Leo rules over the heart. And so, that kind of thing is important. So what you want to do from a heart space. Um, it deals with children that you interact with, all children you interact with, particularly your own children. Your inner child is also associated with the fifth house. So, your relationship to that innocent um, part of you that just wants to play and just be in the moment and live life for what you want to do right here, right now. and create joy in your life. So it also rules over drama, theater, and acting. So going to see a play or acting in a play is also associated drama, that kind of thing. Gambling. It rules over risk taking and having fun in that way. Living big is associated with the fifth house. So any form of art, whether it be music, painting, sculpture, um, interior design, that is also associated with the fifth house. So it rules over your passions in life. The fifth house is also ego. So it corresponds to your ego. Celebrations of any kind are associated with the fifth house. Leadership is another thing that's associated with this house. Courage, your sense of courage and bravery. Um, to go into your life with the self-belief and the confidence to do whatever you want to in the moment where you can have fun. Your sense of style, your sense of how you decorate your space, how you decorate your life, design your life, is also associated with the fifth house. Now, moving on to the sixth house. The sixth house corresponds to the sign Virgo and its ruler, which is Mercury. Now, the sixth house is the house of work. It corresponds to work, your relationship with your co-workers. It corresponds to your health as well. So, your physical and emotional health, how you maintain your health, how you view health. It rules things like taking a walk, getting enough exercise, getting enough sleep, doing yoga or meditation or things like that for your mental health and well-being. What you take in on a physical level, but also an emotional and energetic level. So the food that you eat, the information that you consume, and how it affects your health mentally, physically, and emotionally. The sixth house also corresponds to your habits, the things that you do habitually, and your daily routines, whatever you do in the morning, when you get up and brush your teeth, that becomes something that becomes automatic on repeat. You do it without thinking about it. The things that you do that are so normal, that you take them for granted. And so it corresponds to the daily routines that you do on a day-to-day basis, whatever they might be for you. Do you get up, exercise, stretch, take care of yourself, take care of the house, clean up the house, all those kind of things like that. Pets, maintaining pets, taking care of pets. It rules anything that you can fix, take care of, serve, and deal with in very practical ways. So pets are also associated, like feeding them, taking care of them, doing all those kind of things. So pets are also associated with the sixth house. The sixth house also corresponds to the little details of your life. So those little things that define who you are and what kind of a life that you'll live and determine the state of being. So the little things that make up for the big things, and telling who you are and what your life is like. So it deals with taking care of your physical and mental well-being. Um, the sixth house also corresponds to how you're being of service to those around you, how you're helping them, how you're serving them. Um, is it, your children and taking care of them? The husband, or it can be the things that you do in service to the world around you. It could be volunteering. It could be your work and helping somebody at work, um, or like helping customers, those kind of things like that, being of service to customers. It rules over service providers like a dietitian or a doctor, um, or those kind of things like that, especially when it comes to health. So people who provide a service are also associated with this house. Functionality, anything that serves a function. Cleaning is associated with this house, maintaining a clean space. Your duties and responsibilities that you have to do, work that you have to do that you may not want to do, but you have to do that work. Boundaries are also associated with this house. Diet and exercise, how you maintain your physical body, is associated with this house. Digestion is super important. That is affected by the foods that you eat. So maintaining, eating right, eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, and those kind of things are also really important to, when it comes to looking at the sixth house. So, it rules over pills that you take, medication that you take, um, and the foods that you eat that make you healthy and that keep you healthy, because you have to maintain your body and your health, day after day after day. It isn't just a one night stand. Um, it corresponds to illnesses, as well, structure and schedule. Those are also things, associated with the sixth house. So the structure, the routine that you provide in your life. Um, and it also corresponds to perfectionism at worst, working so hard and not feeling like you're enough. Um, and the sixth house is also how we ground ourselves and connect to our physical bodies. Things like meditation and, yoga, those kind of things like that are also associated with the sixth house. Your job, where you go to work. Now, your 10th house is your career or your profession, but the sixth house is your job. It rules that particular aspect of earth energy. Um, so the sixth house also rules hygiene, taking care of your hygiene, your physical hygiene, and daily rituals, as well, routines that you do on a day-to-day basis. So that is what the sixth house is all about. Now let's look at the seventh house, and that is the house of relationships. So this is committed relationships. Now we're talking about marriages and those kind of things like that. We're not talking about the fifth house, remember, and that was about dating and romance and those kind of things like that. Now we're talking about committed marriages. It could also be business partnerships, those kind of things like that. So every single house has a corresponding planet and sign. So we're talking about Venus corresponding to the seventh house and Libra, the sign of Libra. So it's you can find the seventh house at the 3 o'clock position of the chart, which is also the descendant. So the seventh house also pertains to legal matters, justice, the court of law, those kind of things like that. So if there's any trial or anything like that. But it's one of the signs that rules over the law. And Sagittarius, too, and the ninth house, which is publishing, those kind of things like that. But we're talking about the law here. In the justice system, labor is a sign that can be compared to a judge. Once the judge wants balance and equality in the situation and order in the court. So laborers can be associated with judges or diplomats that can harmonize between the two different sides and take the best of both worlds and blend something together. It corresponds to balance. So, the seventh house rules over showing up in partnerships in a balanced way, in a way where we are wanting to have 50-50 of the work of each partner, putting in 50%, making the whole. And this could be when it comes to doing the work in the relationship, just showing up for the relationship. So we want balance with the seventh house. The seventh house also corresponds to contracts that we sign when we are in relationship with others. This can be business contracts or relational contracts. Diplomacy is yet another area that's ruled by the seventh house. So when we're peacemaking, when we choose to be the diplomat, we want harmony with both sides, and we want people to get along and accept each other's opinions and hear out each other's perspectives and have peace ultimately. So fairness and justice is another theme, that everyone is included, no one's left out, and everyone's opinion, including your own, matters. But it's genuinely about the group and about the other. Is there fairness? Is it fair for both people, not just fair for one and not fair for the other person? So fairness and justice is what this house is about. So the other thing is balance in relationships. So the seventh house also rules your sense of aesthetic and your beauty, the beauty that you decorate your life with, what you find beautiful. It rules anything in the beauty department, from clothes to art, to music, anything like that is also seventh house. And so opposites attract. We can look at the other. We can look at the two opposites coming together and shaking hands and learning from the other. Negotiations are also ruled by the seventh house. Negotiating all kinds of relationships correspond to the seventh house if they are committed relationships. The seventh house rules over why we relate and why are we in the relationship? What do we want from the relationship? And what kind of relationships are right for us? That is very important to remember about this house, is the kind of relationships that are supportive to us, that are nurturing to us, that give us that emotionally nourished bond in whatever, however we want to relate to others. So, what we seek in partnerships is also ruled by the seventh house. How we approach relationships in general. And so the things that we learn through relating, the things that we learn through partnering, through connecting with another person, is also ruled by the seventh house. So what we learn through the other, and what does the other want to teach us? How do we want to evolve in this relationship? How do we want to change and grow? So, how do we want to become greater and more evolved in our relationships is also seventh house matter. So seeing ourselves through another's eyes and perspective is another matter associated with this house. So of how relationships can teach us about who we are. That the person that we're relating to is a mirror that's reflecting back to us who we are. So being open to the opinions and perspectives of others is part of this house. So, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships. This is a very seventh house Libra saying. So the seventh house also rules over how you show up to public or social events as well. So business partnerships and cooperation also matter with this house. Deep friendships, not necessarily 11th house, which is your friendships, but deep friendships also play a part in this house. And so, in terms of where it is on the chart, it represents the descendant. So, if the ascendant is the first house, the descendant is the seventh house. So, the descendant is the part you identify the least with, the sign and its traits and qualities that you identify least with in your life. And the descendant is always opposite the ascendant. Divorce is also something that the seventh house rules. Moving on to the eighth house. The eighth house corresponds to the zodiac sign Scorpio and the planets Pluto and Mars. So the eighth house rules over things like shared resources, joint resources, shared money, shared wealth, shared possessions. Inheritance is also something associated with this house. So inheriting money from other people or somebody else, or inheriting resources. Bank loans, taxes, insurance, all of those things are eighth house matters. So the eighth house is also support, be it physical support, financial support, or emotional support from others. The eighth house is the occult. It's the taboo, secretive, hidden, dark, and deep topics in life, such as things like astrology and numerology, psychology, and all of those things that are more occult. It represents what's esoteric. Um, and so the eighth house is also the house of death, which can be physical death, but also non-physical. It can be metaphorical death of the death or birth transformation, that you are giving birth to something and seeing it grow and transform, and then it has to die away if it's a living thing. And so it represents that whole phoenix rising from the ashes, that you went through all these experiences and you release them, and then through that releasing and through that changing, you are reborn. You went through a metamorphosis of some kind. You were a caterpillar that went through a cocoon and emerged as a butterfly. Um, and so that's what the eighth house really is about. So sex is also associated with the eighth house, the spiritual experience of sex. So making changes in your life, making transformations in your life through letting things go or just changing in general is associated with this house. So it's being willing to make sacrifices and transform. So the eighth house is the depths of life. So life's deeper and darker areas. So it rules over rebirth. Secrets and mysteries are also part of what the eighth house rules. And so intimacy, into me I see, seeing someone at the deepest level, connecting eye to eye, and connecting in the deepest, most profound way possible, is also something that the eighth house rules. So the emotions of jealousy and grief are also associated with the eighth house, because those are more negative Scorpio emotions. And so feeling like somebody shouldn't have something, and also feeling grief. Loss is another topic that the eighth house covers. And so going below the surface to find the true answers, to find the true gems, to find the truth that is buried, that needs to be put in the light of awareness in order to be released and transformed and integrated, where you become more powerful in that way. So the eighth house governs all painful and traumatic experiences that we don't want to face, that we sort of want to dig under the carpet or deny, and disown and pretend like they don't matter, but they do, and they need to be experienced. So it rules things that we want to disown, that we want to just put off dealing with. And this can be things like loss and releasing something from your life. But the thing is, we have to walk through the storm in order to find the rainbow on the other side of it. We need to go through these kind of experiences to have the real rebirth. that we're seeking, in the real spiritual fulfillment that we're seeking. So, it also corresponds to the deeper motivations that you have for what you want, the reasons why you desire what you desire. So it rules therapy. So it rules things where you're going, where you're digging down below the surface to find the answers, to find the truth, buried deep and down below. And so when you're in therapy, you have really difficult conversations. And you do get very deep in order to have the necessary conversations, and things become conscious and things become aware and integrated with therapy. So psychology is also ruled by the 8th house. Fear and other dark emotions correspond to the 8th house as well. Dangerous material. And the 8th house is intense relationships where you say something and you follow through with it. Your word is your bond, that you are loyal to the core, to the other person. Because that's one of Scorpio's the high root of Scorpio is someone who's strong. They can stay the course. They can be loyal to whoever they're in relationship with. So that is, another part of this house. That's what it's about. And so the business aspects of relationship are also corresponding to this house. Revenge is also ruled by the 8th house. And then power and power struggles, because Pluto, which is the planet that corresponds to the 8th house, is the planet of power, and what you do to gain power, the power that you carry within you, and power games, power struggles, and then possessiveness is also associated with the 8th house. Now I am going to be discussing the 9th house in astrology. So, the 9th house corresponds to the sign of Sagittarius and the planet Jupiter in astrology. So, the 9th house is all about long distance travel, traveling to other places, to foreign lands, to traveling to different countries and different continents. Philosophy is also a matter that is very 9th house. Publishing, the 9th house also rules publishing, so publishing novels or books, or those kinds of things like that. The 9th house is also spirituality in an optimistic and philosophical sense. So you're viewing life from a larger perspective, that kind of thing. And it's about faith and higher power. That's also something related to the 9th house, universal forces, your personal philosophy over life, your outlook on life, and your beliefs. Your philosophical beliefs on life are also governed by the 9th house. So the 9th house is also higher learning, higher education. So colleges and universities are a 9th house area. So we're talking about that kind of thing. getting out of your comfort zone. Um, that's also very ninth house. So it rules over foreign travel and how traveling can change your world view. The ninth house also corresponds to meeting people from another culture. So, meeting foreigners, meeting people from different lands, and listening and learning from them and hearing their perspectives. Religion and faith are also connected to the ninth house, so the different types of religions and faith in a higher power. Individuals like nuns and priests are connected to the ninth house as well. Um, and so freedom and expansion are also ninth house topics. So liberation for you to explore and learn whatever you want to, and expansion and growth, personal growth, intellectual growth through learning and having new experiences throughout life, um, and how you can gain a lot of knowledge from those experiences. So the ninth house rules that kind of thing. So it's really our quest for meaning, our search for spiritual meaning through learning, through exploration, through traveling, through meeting new people. It's also connected to the ninth house. So the ninth house is it rules over all kinds of higher philosophical truths. So are we humble enough to learn the new information? Are we willing? Are we teachable, coachable? Are we curious enough to learn new things, to continue to be a lifelong learner and grow? Or are we going to be dogmatic and preachy and thinking that we know all, um, and being self-righteous in a negative way? The ninth house is also in laws. It also looks at the law. So it looks at laws and ethics that govern society. So it looks at rules and regulations. Um, the ninth house also looks at your inner laws and your inner principles, and how you guide your life through your truth. Seeing life from a broader lens, really taking that magnifying glass and zooming it out to see life at a broader perspective, through learning, through new experiences, through travel, all of that. Wisdom is also associated with the ninth house. And so part of the word is wisdom. Wiz, you're very smart, but then dumb, you're also smart to ask questions and you're humble and curious to learn new things. And you are wise enough to admit that you don't have all the answers, you don't know all. And that's really the beauty of life and humanity, is that we we won't know all. We don't know all. And so can we be curious to continue to learn new information and new look at life in different ways and in different contexts, through various perspectives. So the higher self is associated with the ninth house as well, the abstract mind, self-education, teaching yourself, learning something on your own through your own initiative. That's associated with the ninth house as well. So your spiritual truth is associated with the ninth house. And luck and good fortune of all kinds is associated with this house as well, because it corresponds to Jupiter, which is the great benefic, the bringer of luck and expansion and joy and abundance, and positive, outcomes. That's what Jupiter brings and blesses and bestows upon everyone is, you know, really positive things, in teaching, um, and, either being a preacher or being a teacher, um, especially being a professor at a university is also associated with the ninth house. Now we're moving on to the 10th house now, and this house has a corresponding sign and planet. So it corresponds to Capricorn and the planet Saturn. So the 10th house is an angular house. It corresponds to the midheaven in your chart. And the midheaven is your career sector. That's what that is. It looks at the kind of career that you will go upon and experience and uncover and go through in your life. That's what the 10th house is. And when it comes to your career, it's really the highest that you can achieve in your life. So the 10th house is your career. It is, your career goals. What you want to be when you grow up is associated with this. Um, so it's the right career for you that will bring you the most happiness and fulfillment, where you look to any planets in the 10th house, it's going to tell you in the corresponding signs that that planet is in, is going to tell you what are the right careers for you based off of the traits and interests of those signs or that sign in your birth chart. So what's going to be the most meaningful and rewarding and worthwhile career for you? And it's really important to understand that the 10th house is your career, the 6th house is your job. As I discussed earlier in this video, if you watch the chapter on the 6th house, I discussed the 6th house being your job. So the 10th house is your career. So the 10th house is also ambitions. That's something associated with it, your ambitions for what you want to achieve. Purpose as well is associated with this. So your purpose for why you came here, why you incarnated, who you truly meant to become in your life. What are you meant to do? What's your calling? And what is the highest that you can achieve? That is the 10th house, and that is the midheaven, the reason why you came here. And the work that your soul has set out for you to, to accomplish, and to gain rewards and results from. So it looks at discipline and hard work. So putting a lot of that into what you're doing. So discipline, keeping at something, staying the course of it, having a structure and a schedule that you're sticking to to achieve that thing and to continually be committed and determined in that direction of the goals that you have to accomplish. And so the midheaven, the sign of the midheaven is where you need to put the work in and where you need to really take the time to achieve whatever that sign indicates as midheaven shows your career. So the 10th house is also not only career, but it's also prestige and social status. So who do you want to be in the world? What do you want to be known for? What is your reputation? Who do you want to be known as? How do you want to be looked at by society or your community or um, your clan or those kind of things like that? So that is something to definitely take note of when it comes to looking at the 10th house in astrology. Um, it's really all about how, your message that you're putting out there, how is it going to be received? The work that you're doing, how are you going to be looked at by community? So how you take ownership, how you take the lead and sit in the driver's seat and take authority over your life and put in the hard work to live the life that you want to live, to have the career that you want. Um, so, um, the 10th house is also about authority, how you handle authority, how you respond and deal with and put up with and um, maybe even react to authority figures. So authority figures can be anyone who is like a father to you, or it can be anyone in society who, lays down the rules and is very authoritative. So it deals with things like father figures, your father, your relationship with your father, teachers in school, and how they take the lead and expect you to follow these guidelines and get the work that you need to get done accomplished. Saturn is all about teachers, and the 10th house is also government. So, big, authority, the law, um, those kind of things, people in those positions of power. And Saturn wants you to draw a circle and stay inside of it and get the work that you need to get done in this certain way with this certain structure with this persistence and discipline. So, the 10th house is also masculinity. It rules over that. So people in the family that serve as providers, that, give to other family members is also part of the 10th house. So people who are financial or physical providers who really build the foundations for the family, not necessarily the fourth house, which is emotional bonds and connections, but it's more about, Capricorn is about building a building, whatever it is. It can be family, can be, being the breadwinner and, getting the food for people to eat, making the money, paying the bills, doing all those kind of very adulting, responsible, Saturnian, Capricornian things which reside in the practical and pragmatic earth plane. So leadership, people in power or you taking the lead of your own life, as I mentioned before, competition. So, competition between businesses, between people, is also associated with this house. And so setting boundaries to achieve your goals, saying, you're setting a boundary, you're, again, going back to discipline, you're setting the standard, this bar for you to stay inside of it, to achieve your goals. And so tradition, different traditions, history, those kinds of things, are part of this house as well. Teeth and bones, so structural elements of the body that need to be maintained, that make up the body. It's also part of the 10th house. The legacy that you leave behind, the work that you make on the world through the hard work that you've done and the contribution you've made to society. And really the purpose that you fulfilled, that's something too. So the question is, are we here to serve, or soothe our egos, or live a life fully, with the ego driving the ship and wanting what it wants and getting exactly what it wants? So are we here to work hard and make a difference in the world and achieve what our soul wanted, or we're getting too caught in the attention and the prestige and the attractions and desires of the ego that we've forgotten what our purpose is? So that's huge to consider. So it looks at your impact on society. And so it looks at you working hard, you putting the hard work in to then be the backbone and support others through maybe giving money to people or, physical possessions to people. Any kind of support that comes from your hard work, especially if a lot of that hard work is in your career sector of your life. Now I'm going to be discussing the 11th house in astrology. So this house corresponds to the zodiac sign Aquarius and the two planets that is ruled by Aquarius, Saturn and Uranus. So this house corresponds to friendship, how we view our friends, and what kind of a friend we are in general. It's also how our friends view us as individuals. So it deals with networking, and working with other people, to achieve a common goal, or, have discussions where everyone's sharing their perspectives and their opinions, and everyone is respecting each other for their opinions and for their thoughts and their beliefs. And no one is put to the sidelines and put out of commission and not included. Everyone's included. It's fair. It's just. It's everyone embracing everyone's differences and accepting everyone for who they are, regardless of skin color or, whatever it is. So it deals with collaboration, community. It rules over community, connecting on the intellectual level, connecting in this kind of way, where we are talking to one another and also listening to one another and sharing ideas and listening to others' ideas. It's also the house of the futurist. So it deals with looking into the future, planning out and mapping out the plans for humanity as a whole. So it deals with, things like innovations, innovations, progressive ideas leading to innovations of new things. It corresponds to science as well, technology of all kinds. The 11th house is also your dreams and aspirations for what you want to become. Who do you want to be in the world? What do you want to give back to the world? How do you want to contribute to the world? And what do you want to do in the world? So your hopes and wishes for um, what you want to do, not necessarily career, which is your 10th house, but just in general. What are you in this way? What are you hoping to become? Who are you hoping to become? Foster children are also associated with this house as well. Adopted children, charities, giving back to people and concerned about the sake of the masses, concerned about what, so many people can afford, what most people can afford, what's, available for every one of us. It deals with, when it comes to charities, it deals with, feeding and, giving to the people that are less fortunate, that have less money, um, and, the good that can come from that. Eccentricity, or people that are eccentric or wild, or, don't follow the status quo, are also associated with this house. People that stand out, people that do not want to follow, that want to go on their own path, that want to be mavericks, um, as well. Um, and so the 11th house is also social media. It deals with any kind of rebellion and revolution that exists, um, that could pertain to the world in general, and also in your personal life. So it deals with that. Astrology is also something that the 11th house rules, and your attitude towards society and how you fit into society, how you're going to contribute to society. It also rules everything that comes back to you. So possessions, love, energy, anything on the physical, mental, emotional level that comes back to you that you receive is also an 11th house matter. Social consciousness is also 11th house. Humanitarianism, strong connections, um, strong intellectual connections are also ruled by the 11th house. Connecting with like-minded people, and also groups that are put together because of common interest, because this person was interested in something and their ideas and beliefs align and are similar to this other person. And so there's this collaboration, there's this networking, this negotiation that happens, this bond that happens because of these commonalities, because of everyone completely open-minded and open-hearted to everyone else in the end. Last but not least, I'm going to be talking about what the 12th house means in astrology. So we're wrapping things up. This is where we end the zodiac wheel. We talked about all 11th houses now, and now is the time for the final one. So this 12th house corresponds to the zodiac sign Pisces and the planets Jupiter and Neptune. So Neptune's the modern ruler of Pisces, and Jupiter is the ancient ruler. So this house is a mystical house. It's definitely that. It deals with spirituality, spiritual practices, meditation, yoga, journaling, all this kind of things like that. And just spirituality in general deals with you're connecting to a higher power, like God or goddess or whoever. The house of sorrow, it's known for that. It's known for the house of suffering um, as well. So it is also the house of illusions. So it deals with optical illusions. It deals with disillusionment. It deals with things that appear to be one way, but they're really another way in general. It's the house of confusion. Now we're talking about a lot of confusion. It is also about escapism. So escaping off to another land or finding different things that you're doing where you can escape from this earth plane and where you're escaping from the problems that you need to face on the earth plane in the practical 3D physical reality. So it's important not to stay in the dream world forever. Um, and not to get caught in the lower frequencies of the 12th house, which is doing drugs and alcohol and finding means to escape where you're getting so lost in it and so sucked in it that you lose touch with the practical reality. It's also associated with sleep. So it deals with dreams. This can be literal dreams that you have at night or figurative dreams like aspirations that you have, dreams of having, something in your life, something physical, or having your life be a certain way. Um, it's also the house of foreign lands. And the ninth house is about foreign lands. The 12th house used to mainly be about that. But now the ninth house took over. And so it deals with other worlds. It deals with the unconscious, the subconscious, the collective unconscious, and the individual unconscious. So it deals with confronting demons and hidden enemies. It's also the house of hidden enemies, and these can be enemies inside yourself. It's the house of self-undoing. It's the house of your blind spot or the things that you're not seeing. And your own worst enemy. Um, and so it corresponds to these demons and to these gremlins that lie inside of us. So it's also a place of reflection and endings. It's the end of the cycle. We're coming to the very end. We're transcending into another life. We're moving into non-physical. And we're reflecting on how far we've come and the wisdom that we've gained from our journey in life. So it deals with the end of life, deals with being at the end of life, being, an older person, and reflecting on your life. It also corresponds to being an infant. So it corresponds to before life experiences and afterlife experiences, or at the end of life, where you're not totally consciously aware of what is going on physically around you and when it comes to living in the practical reality. So the 12th house really comes in strong at the very beginning and strong at the very end of your life, where you go into that 12th house territory at those two opposite, the very beginning of your life, the very end of your life. It's also boundlessness, there's no boundaries with the 12th house. Boundaries are, released and excluded. They're, broken. They're non-existent. Is no boundaries. There are no boundaries in the 12th house. It's boundless, just like the ocean, just like um, just the waves sort of coming against each other. There's no boundary separating them. And so it deals with no boundaries, transcending and merging into, the infinite qualities of the universe and the vastness of it. It's also the house of fantasies and inspiration, feeling inspired to do things and feeling, in spirit about something. So it deals with altered states of being, such as meditation, such as sleeping, such as the feeling that you get when you're on highs from doing drugs. It deals with intuition. Intuition is really the inner guiding compass that goes beyond the logical mind, that tells you what is the right place to go and what, feels right, basically. This also is an important thing to note about the 12th house, is if you have a lot of planets in the 12th house, you need your time alone. Solitude, time to reflect, time to contemplate your life and your experiences. So spending time alone in deep reflection in solitude is super important. The 12th house is also sensitivity to your environment. So if you have a lot of 12th house planets, then you may be very sensitive to textures, colors, sounds, and it can be helpful when it comes to creative pursuits, such as art and music and all of that. But on the downside, you're hypersensitive to your environment, and that can be a downfall when it comes to just being and going about your life. So this is a house of unconditional love, of accepting everyone no matter what, as they are no matter what. And so it deals with being part of something much bigger than yourself, being one with the universe, that kind of thing. This is also the house which deals with volunteering or going out into the world and being charitable and selflessly serving others with, boundless compassion that you may have. So it's a very charitable house. It sort of comes off the 11th house, which rules over charities and things like that. But then you move to the 12th house, and then you really have, a sense of where you're feeling like you do want to be charitable because you genuinely care about everyone in that way. So sacrifices are also associated with the 12th house. And what are you willing to sacrifice? What kinds of sacrifices you make in life are ruled by the 12th house. Unconditional love is also a 12th house matter. Empathy and compassion, understanding what someone is going through without having to necessarily experience what they've gone through, but really feeling, their pain and feeling, even positive emotions, or empathizing that and understanding at a deep soul level what they're feeling, and or what they're going through. It's the house of healing, emotional healing, ancestral healing, physical healing, but especially spiritual healing. This house also governs poetry, music, dancing, and art, and paintings and things like that, sculptures, and also filming, because when we talk about Neptune was discovered around the time that the photographs were getting invented and all of that. And so it deals with photography and filming, things like that. The 12th house also looks at your hidden gifts inside of you. So those hidden gems, those hidden treasures that you have within you, that you can bring forth out into the world in whatever way that you want to or not. So it deals with hidden talents and abilities. It corresponds to hidden places where you basically can't leave when you want to. It deals with places like asylums, prisons, hospitals, and also monasteries. And so the 12th house also rules over mediums, channelers, guardian angels, spirit guides, intuitives, and also large animals. And in terms of the body part of the 12th house, the feet. So it also rules over mentors. It's a house that deals with moving forward, we've moved on to this life and we're transcending into another realm, into another world. And there's this otherworldly sense that's very strong with the 12th house. And so we're moving forward onto a new trajectory, onto a new path, into a new realm of existence. Um, and so that's really what the 12th house is all about. So thank you for watching this video. If you've watched, from the beginning to the end, I hope that you found value from this, or if you just skip to whatever house that you're interested in, it may be one where you have a lot of planets in that house, or whatever it may be. I really hope that you found meaning from this video. And if you did, I don't know if I've said this before, but like the video, subscribe to my channel, and share it with your friends or whoever you want to if you think that they would enjoy this kind of content. So until next time, bye for now.